Behind us, we have the Epoch Times. This is such a phenomenal resource. You guys remember when Epoch Times first rolled out? No one else was really talking about the stuff that they were doing in an uncensored fashion. So we're really grateful to the organization that you guys have.
Appreciate it.
And all the work that you did. Guys, we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about before, and that's China. And we're going to talk about maybe from a different perspective than you may have heard before. So to get things started, please introduce yourself, talk about a little bit about what you as one of the keynote speakers here about.
Yeah, so I'm Joshua Phillip. I do a show called Crossroads with Epoch Times. So maybe you see me on YouTube, Crossroads with Joshua Phillip. I'm also a senior investigative reporter for Epoch Times, and a lot of my work, I've investigated a lot of things. During the beginning of COVID, maybe some of you saw my documentary investigating the origins of at the time they called it the Wuhan coronavirus, right? I traced, of course, the virus back to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, got attacked like you wouldn't believe for it, and so that was, I think, the first real report that pointed to that. I also did, of course, the real story of January 6th, documentary on that. I've done a lot since then. I was recently down, a couple years now, down in Panama and Mexico investigating the border crisis, and I showed how taxpayer-funded programs right here in the United States are paying for and running the entire operation. And I'm also doing a lot of stuff, of course, on the Chinese Communist Party. A lot of my work, going back to 2008, has been investigating Chinese subversion of the United States.
So you seem like a very regular guy. I'm looking at you. But dude, you're like hardcore, man. You are tackling the hottest topics. I can't imagine what kind of hate mail you're getting. I don't want to make it negative, but
it's creative, yeah.
So, okay, now you know you need to pay attention to what we're going to talk about. So, I know we don't have as much time as you did in your keynote. Could you tell the folks a little bit about how we need to be thinking about what's going on in China? There's so many competing voices, but not a lot of investigative stuff being done. So, yeah.
So, I would actually say most people, when they hear China, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But if you were to tell, if another country were to do what they do on a regular basis, we would consider them our greatest adversary. We know they're behind the drug trade. In fact, a couple of Chinese individuals just got arrested for laundering money for the cartels. Like, they're running the drug trade. Fentanyl comes from there. They're killing, based on that alone, 70 to 100,000 Americans every year. We know they launch cyber attacks against our businesses on a rolling basis, stealing intellectual property. We know, for example, that they have operations spying on American soldiers, spying on American bases, spying on American universities, buying off politicians, bribing journalists, the whole 9 yards. If any other country were to do this, we would call them our greatest adversary. We know that in China, there was an article, The Telegraph had an article just recently, saying that the Chinese Communist Party is about to increase its organ harvesting centers by threefold. Harvesting organs from living people, they do, by the way. This in particular is going to be against Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang, but they do it against Christians, they do it against Tibetans to an extent, and they do it against Falun Dafa practitioners, people who believe in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance and are being killed for it. If any other government were to do that, America would sanction them. We'd call them the biggest abusers of human rights, and people would be sick to their stomachs, but we let them do it. And so I don't know why there's this lack of understanding about the CCP, where we can see that everything they do is hostile towards us. They publicly declare that we're their number one enemy. They publicly say that we live, you die. The CCP cannot coexist in the same world as the United States. We know that according to NATO at least, they're the force that keeps the Ukraine war going. We know based on Iran, they're the force that keeps that war going. We know that with Israel, that they were the main force meeting with the Palestinian Authority, meeting with Hamas, keeping that war going. And so why don't we put two and two together and recognize them for what they are? And that gets into what I think is the bigger problem. They've infiltrated our government. And a lot of my work as an investigative reporter has been on that. And I'm not just talking about buying off government officials. I mean training spies, coming up through the universities, and getting jobs in key government agencies, and a lot of them have been there for a very long time. They've weaponized our agencies. They've gotten key positions in them. I can give you example on top of example. One of many is something I tried to do recently. There was a report came out An accused Chinese spy, I think actually found guilty now, was caught trying to bribe an IRS official to revoke the nonprofit status of a dance company in New York called Shenyun Performing Arts. The Chinese Communist Party hates them because they show the dance culture that the CCP destroyed, and they criticize the CCP. They tried to get an IRS agent to revoke the nonprofit status. It turned out the IRS agent was an undercover FBI agent, and they arrested the Chinese spy. But stuff like this happens. I mean, I watch it, so I see stuff probably every week, and for some reason, nothing gets done about it.
The thing, guys, I don't know about you, but 95% of what you just said, I didn't know at all. So, and I'm not the sharpest knife in the block, I get it, but still, really, this is it's like you just said, goes in one ear, goes in the other ear. What about this thing that I keep hearing, that we have to coexist for economic reasons? They manufacture stuff, we're the bigger supplier. I don't even know how to make sense of all that noise, given what you just said.
The thinking of the Chinese Communist Party is that the weakness of the West, the way to defeat America is by manipulating its weakness. And they believe our weakness is material interest, business. And so when they open the door to us, what do? Well, they undercut us, they take our factories, they take our jobs, they rip us off, they steal our intellectual property. They do bribery operations all throughout Latin America and Africa, and they undercut us on deals. They regard us as an adversary. They're not wanting to share the same table as us, and they call us a sparring partner. In other words, they're training with us. They're finding out how to do it. But the goal is to kick us out eventually. And you do find that in China. Every time a business gets big enough and they don't need us anymore, they kick out the American business. They did it to Uber, they did it to Jeep, they did it to a whole bunch of them.
Is there a pathway that, so, and I know you're an investigative journalist, but you probably know more about this than the politicians and the policymakers, I think. What is the path forward? Is there a practical way to shut them off or sanction them, given, the fact, people buy stuff and it's all made in China? They've been very good at what they've done. How do we extract ourselves from this quagmire?
This is what it is. The American people need to wake up, frankly. And I'm not criticizing people when I say this. There are people trying to keep you asleep. Most of the major media cannot talk about the real issues in China without facing punishment. They lose their credentials, they get kicked out of China. A lot of them are tied in with major corporations. About five or six corporations control almost all the major media in the United States. Businesses won't talk about it. Endless Cantor Freedom, a basketball and an NBA player, wrote a message against slave labor in China on his shoe, and he got punished for it. While you have other NBA players, kneeling on the basketball court criticizing America, a guy can't criticize current-day slavery in China without getting persecuted. Think about that. Hollywood films can't talk about it. A lot of diplomats don't want to talk about it, and so they don't talk about it.
It's really a perfect example of infiltration and control.
Well, and part of it's bribery. Part of it is, I'm protecting my job. But part of it is also they've gotten agents into the agencies. They've gotten Chinese Communist Party agents into the media. They've gotten them into government. They've gotten them into just about every level of government agencies. And they've been doing this for decades. And Americans need to make noise about it. Americans need to wake up and recognize this is happening. I mean, Epoch Times, we report on it all the time. We're always reporting on it, and we have people trying to shut us down. Wow. I think because we report on it.
Wow.
We even get denied advertisements and stuff because a lot of the another point of this, a lot of the advertising networks are tied in with this stuff. The whole subversion networks, and so Chinese interests, they don't want to talk about it.
It's really like a cancer that's metastasized.
It is.
Right?
It is. It really is.
It's everywhere. But there is, and you just heard the path forward right here. It's about getting you, the people, becoming more aware. Are we the people becoming more aware? Because there's very little a politician can do if the people that elected him don't get behind with some understanding. So this is a pathway forward. Has to be with more people understanding the nature of what you just heard. Now, a couple of practical steps here. I mean, we could be talking here for a couple of hours at least. A couple of practical steps. If people want to know more about this, how do they follow you? How do they keep track of you? I want to make sure we definitely plug the Epoch Times, because these guys are the real deal. So how do we do that?
Yeah, well, theepochtimes.com, TheEpochtimes.com. We report on this stuff all the time. If you're following us, you know this stuff. Also, my show, Crossroads with Joshua Phillip. I cover everything, but I do a lot of investigative reports, and I do stuff on this pretty often as well.
Where is your show? How do people find your show?
You can watch it on YouTube. So Crossroads with Joshua Phillip on YouTube, also on Epoch TV or Epoch Times website. And I, of course, my Twitter handle is, or X handle is, @JoshJPhillip.
Guys, this is the type of stuff that's happening at Turning Point USA, a collection of people that are not just working for our freedoms, but are highly competent in how they're doing it. So guys, please connect, follow, subscribe, get a subscription to the Epoch Times. I get that newspaper on my driveway. I get the subscription. Members of my family get a subscription. They won't know about it unless you share, because you're not going to see ads for Epoch Times on mainstream news. So please spread the word. Last words before we end this interview. Again, directing you to the audience in terms of what they can do, how they can do their part in bringing an awareness. Light is what dispels darkness, and you, my friends, are the light. Jesus said, again, it's not a religious show, but he did say, you are the light of the world. He did say that. He also said, you are like a light on a hill, and you shouldn't hide it. Light means making what's obscure and dark visible. You are the one who can do it with your mouth, so you are the light. Closing remarks.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's daunting stuff, but again, government action is it's a reaction to the will of the people. And so you need to say what matters to you. You need to make noise. You need to be the one saying, I'm worried about the future of my country. Write your local representative, write your local, go to your city council hall or something like that. There are things you can do as an American, and I'd say that's actually the basis of the American system. Civic engagement. We don't live under a monarchy. That means that you, as the American citizen, your will is what creates change.
Thank you so much for talking with me. So appreciate that, Joshua. Guys, keep it straight here. We are not done. We're still at Turning Point USA. We'll be having more live streams coming to you on Coastal Conservative News, the channel you're watching us on. Also, make sure you follow Open Mic with Michelle and Ali, #1 show on Patriot TV. And also, make sure you get connected with the Reclaim campaign. It is our effort to bring training on how you can get better candidates. This is what Josh just talked about, better candidates, more people in power, how to raise more money earlier in your location so you can get them in power, and number 3, how to increase your political force, your political voice in your community. It's all local action equals national impact. Josh, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.